want to first start, by talking about your single Worth It. What was the inspiration behind this song?
How worth it is all about, pushing through obstacles, challenges, keeping your faith, and, not being afraid to get gutter with it either. It's the victory in the end as well that I'm also displaying as I have been on a journey of independency, of fight, of having to put my best foot forward, of finding my spirituality and center. So it's all of those things, and it's a little bossy and flossy as well. Celebrating the victory of that and also defining everything for yourself.
And you're rapping on this on this song. So what made you, be like, this is the time right now. I'm about to flex my bars.
Well, I've been actually, you know, I like to call it speak my piece in rhythm, because I'm not a rapper, but I grew up around rhythm and I know music. So it kind of flows naturally. It's something that I do live and throughout a lot of my independent projects. But this is the first time that I was comfortable releasing it as a single. It's kind of the vibe right now as well. But I've had this song for years, and I just sat on it because it didn't necessarily fit the R&B projects
Uh-huh.
per se. And I decided that I would release it as a single, as that's what I've kind of been doing during the whole pandemic last year. 9 singles and some visuals, but I had that freedom, of course, as an independent artist, and I don't know. I that's what I felt on my heart. So I decided to lead this next project with Worth It.
Nice. And you brought up the pandemic. So I want to know, what was like your biggest takeaway with the pandemic of who Maya is, or just healing? I feel like it was a different experience a little bit for everybody. So what was your biggest takeaway from it?
I had a revelation of how addicted to work I was when I finally became stationary in my own house that I got in 2005. And I'd never experienced wildlife like I did during the months that I sat down at home. And I also found peace. I felt like I was in the midst of the Wiz or the Wizard of Oz and finding magic in your own backyard and how special it can be. But I was always hustling. And I realized, okay, I'm having nightmares of rushing to airports, missing flights, people leaving their wardrobe behind. I need to get out of this for months and months and months. So I was dream stressing.
Mhm.
And that's not healthy to live that type of lifestyle and not know that you have an addiction, because it is rewarding financially and you can empower yourself and others through those experiences. But that's the first time in my entire career that I was actually stationary that long and then spending time with family. And that's a problem. Life passes us by so quickly. So it was a nice reality check that I needed, but it also was a nice reset for me to really go within spiritually, find what works for me, whether it's fitness, diet, and exercise, my meditations and my affirmations, really get grounded, regrounded, and make a habit of those things every day. First of all, to push through what's happening on the outside, but
Mhm.
also to help others as well. And so I was conducting cooking sessions, detoxes with Queen Afua, much respect, Queen, and my vegan challenges, of course. Um, and still able to work and finish 2 projects musically and a couple of visuals, but it was a nice reset for the world, I can say. And I was really thankful to have not lost my nuts and bolts up here.
Right. No, seriously. Oh,
Figure it out.
seriously. And in what, you named a few ways, but in what other ways do you nourish like your overall well-being daily?
Yeah, reading is very helpful, tuning into frequencies and meditation sounds, sound bowls at night while I'm sleeping. I like to tune into different hertz. Stretching is a big thing as I get older, because, you can kind of feel like the Tin Man, once again, a Wizard of Oz or Wiz reference, stiff. Even Queen of Afua mentions mobility and making sure that you get some movement in every day. My sunshine, I made sure that I worked out outside to get my vitamin D on, because it's easy to kind of wallow in your own depression or your own issues or the news at that time and be
Mhm.
bombarded and also being, I would say, taken over by so much information that it really causes you to want to go to sleep because you're exhausted mentally. So I made a point and a habit every day to just lay outside, to play with my animals outside, to take a walk, even night walks. And I slept outside on my balcony. I got the covers and the
You're
blankets and the
lucky.
pillows with my dog. We stargazed. Those types of things bring me right back to God, to
Mhm.
spirituality, and I forget all of the beauty that's around us because we're so tuned in to society. And sometimes that box is our worst enemy. And when I say box, I mean television or computer or a device. And it's also an addiction. So I made sure that I didn't tune in too much, enough to be aware of what is happening so I can speak on it or let people absorb it in their own time and not also be a trauma poster because it's very hard to digest a lot of the things that were happening and still continue to happen this year. Um, but to really find my center and then also what works for me and what I'm seeing results from. So
Yeah.
I had to figure that out. Stationary with no businesses open, by the way, no trainers, no contact. I was around family. I had to protect those that have underlying issues. So I had to figure it all out, as many of us did.
Yeah. And you mentioned something earlier about affirmations. Do you have like three favorite affirmations that you tell yourself daily?
I'm
Especially
always
when things get
creating.
difficult.
I'm always creating my own, depending on the day. You know, but I do like to practice gratitude when I first wake up, and we hear it all the time. But it works because we can easily go to our phones. We can easily go to those emails. I make sure that I spend 10 minutes before I do anything. If I'm lucky and nobody's knocking on the door and nobody's calling my phone, um, I like to thank the universe, thank the creator for life, this breath in my body, all of the things that I do have, not things, but the ability to hear, eyesight, that can go at any moment. Those are privileges. And we often take for granted the simple things. I have a family, I have love all around me. Even if I'm not married with children, there's love everywhere. And I have to acknowledge that I'm not missing anything. And anything else that is added to my life is just a bonus. And I have everything that I need. I have to remind myself because the world teaches you that you're not good enough, or that you need this product, or you need to look like this, or you need to change this part of yourself, or this is what success looks like. And I've been very cautious my whole career to constantly redefine beauty or redefine what success is because your definition can be completely different than other people's ideas for you or even for themselves. And nothing's wrong with that. But we're all different and we all have different times that we operate on. And so all of that I sit with daily. But in the morning, I think about all of the good things in life and I have a better day when I'm allowed to do that.
I aspire to get to your level of patience in this in spiritual wellness. I'm trying to do my meditations, therapy, affirmations. But yes, I aspire. I feel like your spirit through through our Zoom call. I'm like, yes, okay.
I'm a laid back person, and I realized that if I were in a rush, I would probably crash in many areas of my life. So I've learned that letting it flow and taking your time on your time, and sometimes not even on your time, but God's time is the best way to do it. Because there are voices, there are pressures, there are standards that man has created. But what are you creating as far as your outlook
Mhm.
and your own rules are concerned, or your own goals, you know?
That's true. That's definitely true. And you've put 23 years as an internationally known singer. So what do you think goes into building a loyal fan base?
Well, it's really hard to say these days because now it's content. Now it's just, being very personal. People
Mhm.
buy into anything that you do if they feel like they know you, which is a little different from when I grew up as an entertainer before the public. And I even took my time then. There was a lot of pressure because I was just a fresh teenager right out of high school. And I knew certain parts of myself, and I was very strong willed through the arts and discipline. But I don't think any young woman or man is ready to take so many voices of criticism or analyzation and being under a microscope that young. There's
Mhm.
no book that teaches you that. But I feel like I was conditioned for it based on the many teachers that I did have and mentors growing up that always taught me no shortcuts. And then also, fans just, I think the personal connection is what matters most. Of course, exposure is funded by the major machine and labels, so you're more likely to have more impact when you have that behind you. The challenge is getting it and being a priority when you're in a system full of thousands of artists that you're competing with. But I think, my core base that's been riding with me on this independent journey, they understand every lyric, they listen to every song, they follow every interview, and they get a piece of me that's very consistent, and they're aware of my every move. And we've also developed personal cool relationships because of social media or these new platforms being birthed. And I really love to communicate with people. And now I'm more mature, and of course I'm busy being independent, but that's where the true connection is, sometimes beyond just a song. Some songs are very, very impactful that are not singles. And sometimes that's all you're known for, the singles. But there's bodies and bodies of work, of films, of art, of interviews, of live performances, and it's all over the place. But I think when fans can spiritually connect with you, personally connect with you, and get a piece of you as human, that they can also be inspired from or empowered by, that is the sauce that matters.
Sure. And you brought up your independent journey. For those people who don't know, what is the meaning behind the name Planet Nine of your record label?
Well, when I went independent, I started from ground zero, and that was in 2007. So I had to literally go to a spiritual place to figure this out. I didn't know what independent entailed and consisted of. And it was going to be a journey of me sacrificing what I think people associate with success, which is fame, which is also dictated by lots of funding, and that's the initial sign up of my career, with a major label system behind you and being a teenager, and then all of a sudden being considered a public figure. But I knew once I left the machine that all of that support would go out of the window, and that I had to literally be all of that. Not just my label, but also my manager, also my agent, also that hustler, that road manager, that musical director, whatever I had to be to show up to be. I was game for it because I love making music, and I was going to find out a way. And that just led to many different skill sets. Planet Nine was the place that I first went to mentally. I said, if I could take myself away somewhere, where's the first place that I would reside that has its own type of world and laws and resonance and vibration and peace? And I operate in my own time. And so I started actually studying space documentaries just to get my head right, my mind right, and take myself out of worldly issues and definitions. And that's where I found, and that same year, I think Pluto was deemed no longer a planet. And I said, well, that would be the furthest planet from the sun. And it also is probably the planet that takes the longest to rotate around the sun, which means that that's probably several Earth years, in one rotation for that planet. It was then deemed Planet Nine publicly. And so I said, I have to go far away in how I redefine myself away from what I do know. And so it was a spiritual connection to Planet Nine when I decided that here are my rules. Here is my time. This is when I will put things out into the universe. No deadline, but when I decide it's right and ready, and y'all will receive it properly. And so everything was non-traditional. Everything that I once knew went out the window. Everything that I once had went out the window. And so the same thing applies to being on another planet. The skies are different. The weather is different. The sound and the tone of the planet, the frequency is different. So that's where it was. And I'm an outer space head. So I know a lot of people are like, with the emojis right now, but that's really what I did to start my label and then to be okay um, in a different dimension, a different mindset, but also in a different journey.
Sure. I love when you talk because, like I said, the last time we spoke, you mentioned it, and I was just like, oh, wow.
Like, what
No,
is she
it
talking
was
about?
no, and I was explaining it to another friend, so that's why I was like,
Oh,
oh,
okay.
you don't know. We're gonna get this on record. Yes.
That was the psyche behind it. Yeah.
Yes. And what advice could you offer to an artist coming from a major label and is now trying to succeed as an independent artist?
Save your money, live below your means, not even within your means, and invest in you. It will take every dime, every penny to be able to do just the simple things that you once had someone else pay for. Learn how to create a budget, and you can do that in PDF, you can do that in Word doc pages, whatever it is, so that you understand always what you're spending, so
Mhm.
that you can first of all set the price of the things that are coming your way, offers, etc., and understand what you're going to be left with so that you can either cut some people that don't need to be rolling, that are not contributing, but also really map out your life, your finances, save, invest. Learn, of course, contracts. That's very important so you don't find yourself in a very sticky situation that takes and costs a lot more to get out of. Build your team over time. There are a lot of college kids, high school kids that just want internships for the experience to put on their resume, whether they're graphic artists. And now you can connect because you have the internet at the touch of a button on your devices. Empower yourself through using those tools. And education is key, knowledge is power. Learn as many skill sets as you can that contribute to your artistry. That has empowered me, I think, as an artist, because sometimes I believe the business will take priority and precedent when you do become independent as you're figuring out the wave and how to do this. It's very important for artists to have a space and a place of creativity that's not going to cost them an arm and a leg. So use your bedroom, use your bathroom, use your closet to build that vocal booth, invest in equipment. And it's very bare minimal nowadays where you can be anywhere in the world and create your album, but at least be that creator that invests every single day in your pajamas. You can wake up. It also allows you freedom to cut costs, to do it as at your leisure, so you don't feel rushed and forced in a studio that costs $5,000 a day. you know, it creates responsibility when you are the budget, because you do have to generate 100% of those finances unless you got some doughboys or investors in your pocket. But no, it's on you. So find a way also to make other income outside of just music while you're investing in your music, because music is very expensive to make, especially if you're in music or creating instruments and compositions, as well as vocal tracks and harmonies. A lot of R&B takes a lot more time, and pop music takes probably a lot more time than maybe rap, because of the amount of production and tracks within a session and time and care. But you got to invest in you, and it's a nonstop investment, whether it's your visuals, whether it's your sonics, whether it's them flights, them hotels, ground transportation, per diems. There's fees attached, salaries. So you have to write that down and have a system in place, and not to scare anyone, but you learn over time. And especially when you're in the thick of an opportunity, you figure it out real quick. But the goal is to save and preserve your money.
Mhm. Yeah. I feel like sometimes it might be discouraging for people to take that leap or to go that extra mile, especially if you're not willing to invest in yourself or, like you said, put systems into place. So that was very good advice. And you actually recently posted something on your Instagram that said half of the year is behind us with another half ahead. So
Yeah.
yeah, so what are you most looking forward to before the end of the year?
Before the end of the year, I craft my own schedule and I'm already in September. I want to take a month out, but I really want to have some visuals done, of course, for these next two projects, and um, you know, put out amazing art in the universe. I do hope that people stay safe out there. I want COVID to be gone already,
Arts.
that we can return to our normal lives. But hey, it happens. Sometimes it's life, sometimes it's the world. And I do want to see a little bit more peace on social media because there's a lot of children out there that cannot handle it. You know, there's a lot of bullying. Um, Sometimes it takes devastation for the world to come together, but I hope people are more cautious in what they do put out there that affects human beings because human beings feel deeply. And so I'm more concerned about these kids out here that haven't necessarily gone through the conditioning of life to let it just roll off their backs because they're taking it very serious and to heart and committing suicide. That's real. Mental health is at an all-time high as far as being at risk right now because of the shock of the world and the abrupt change in people's lives and having to figure out who you are, first of all. And it's hit us like a ton of bricks. But I would like humanity to be a little bit more kind to each other before the year is over and walk into the next year with more peace and unity.
For sure. I know a few people, unfortunately, who have committed suicide. So I'm just learning to be, gentle with myself. And I
Yeah.
think, yeah, I'm trying to tell that to my nieces and nephews too. So I just have a few more questions and then we can wrap this on up. So what has been your greatest achievement so far in your journey?
My greatest achievement so far in my journey is finding peace, is finding peace within. You know, and every day is, of course, a battle when you step out into the world or are a part of the world and society because of sometimes I think how you ingest the voices and sometimes your very own voice or voices that beat you up and tear you down. But I'm very, very proud of myself for my resilience and pushing through and figuring it out and making a way or building a door when doors were closed, when the underestimation was there to really go in and learn and do better and become who I'm supposed to be. First of all, is a good person with humility, which is sometimes necessary, versus having it all too soon as well, which can cause a crash and burn situation or have the wrong people involved that have you caught up in jail, you know, and I'm not talking about literal jail, I'm talking about a mental prison. And so sometimes those devastations and those obstacles are ultimate blessings because I am free as a bird, free in spirit. I'm healthy, I'm alive, I'm breathing. I dictate my schedule, I dictate where I'm going to go, I dictate who I'm going to hire, I dictate what that budget is going to be, and I can ultimately take care of my family and loved ones and beyond, you know, because I am in control. And so now I'm a better person because I do have control over my life and I can now lead with love because nobody's abusing me. Nobody's abusing my finances. Nobody's abusing my natural talent, you know? And so to be in control is not an egotistical thing. It's to have clarity so that you can be more connected to your source and utilize your gift for the right things versus sometimes the wrong agendas of others, which is either money driven or fame, you know, to their benefit, and to not have those types of characters around me anymore um, is a blessing. And I'm so grateful for that because I do see some of my counterparts that have been caught up, you know, and it could have been me. And I continue to pray for people that are. And I'm also here to empower and help those that need help in legal ways and spiritual ways of advice and wellness, whether it's through diet or prayer and meditation and other ways of getting it together and pushing through. So hopefully now that I've had some life experience and I trust me with wisdom and those experiences, I can utilize that through art or coaching or whatever it might be, mentorships, to really make not even to make, but to help people reach their best selves and ultimately live their best lives.
For sure. I feel like a lot of times when people think of wealth, they assume like money, but I feel like you're like emotionally wealthy, spiritually wealthy, physically wealthy, like wealthy in every aspect. And I feel like that's the greatest source of wealth that you could possibly have. So,
For sure. And then you know what? Everything else falls into place.
mhm.
Everything else falls into place. It's literally the law of attraction. I've never been without something that I absolutely needed. And all the other stuff is extra that you don't need. So I'm grateful for that. And also grateful to be able to provide, with everything I do need, even if it's the bare minimum, because it is still effective. And I think everybody, everybody that is tapped in or not, needs to realize that you are just as significant, and you have a gift as well that will save lives and change lives, and you can make a difference in this world. And I think that's what our ultimate purpose as individuals here, as humans, for this short blink of an eye time is.
Yeah,
Mhm.
absolutely. And this is actually my last question about the women in your life who you look up to. What have they taught you about self-care and putting yourself first?
I've watched a lot of women in my family put themselves last and everyone else first. And I think that example with big hearts and good hearts was a lesson in itself.
Yeah.
I've always proceeded with caution, and maybe a little too much sometimes, that knowing what I know, seeing what I've seen, there's sometimes a lack of trust, and I don't even give people the benefit of the doubt, which is not fair. But it also looks very much like the world looks as it pertains to women, women's rights, and their strength to persevere. And then finally, over half of their lives gone in time to put themselves first with hard earned lessons is very painful. And I'm also dedicated to making sure they don't ever have to do that again, or go through that again. That's my driving force. The women in my life are warriors, and I've learned from their lessons and their experiences. So of course I don't have to go through them as extreme. I've been through some things as well that are very similar, but I know that I come from a family of big hearts that have been taken advantage of, but also warriors because they still push through. And I have praying grandmothers and aunties and cousins that I admire so much. Um, and so I do want to be the one to break some of our generational curses and
Mhm.
habits. And we can all do it together, really, because they walked so we could run, and fly. So I plan to have a better family life for the children that I eventually birth or adopt or whatever it might be. But they pay their dues, and I hate to say that it's pain. There's a lot of pain and trauma that they didn't have to go through, but they did, and it makes the next generation stronger.
That's a beautiful revelation that you came to because I was totally expecting you to take that answer and go someplace else, that question. But I
Oh,
like you identified, no, I like how you identified what didn't happen and how you want to change that trajectory. So
yeah. Hmm.
yeah, for sure.